Hello, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives. And very happy to bring Professor Daryl Hamamoto back to the show. Daryl, how are you tonight?
I'm doing very well, thank you, John O'Loughlin, my friend and colleague. Lots been going on recently.
Well, I see you've got a scarf wrapped around you. Are you
Oh,
guys suffering from fuel oil shortage like Europe or?
no, it's a voluntary cutback on my part, just to acclimate myself to deprivation, widespread deprivation. But I don't use heat around the house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just dress warmly.
Well, my hat's off to you if I had a hat.
Okay. Well, I have a bunch of hats that are very useful in keeping warm.
Yeah, you wore one last week. I was jealous. I should have. If you'd have told me, I'd have wore my Stetson.
Yeah, beanies are very helpful.
I love a nice French beret, you know,
Oh, yeah.
for keeping your head warm,
Oh
or
my
Spanish,
gosh.
boito.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Really, really warm stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing like wool.
I think those should be brought up and styled again because I'm kind of sick of baseball caps personally, especially when some 40 or 50-year-old guys wearing it backwards, just like what he thinks a kid should do, right?
Well,
I think it's very unseemly for a man that age to wear back his baseball cap backwards because not even the hip hop people do that anymore. So, but anyway, that's my own personal peeve.
and not to be confused with hate speech, of course.
Of course not.
Because this is just a personal opinion, and
Yeah, I love everybody.
just because you wear your hat backwards and you look like a dork, you know.
Dorks included, a member of in good standing of dorkdom. Nerddom and dorkdom is my specialty.
No,
Yeah,
I've never noticed the
believe it.
slightest nerdy or dorky thing about you,
Oh,
Professor.
I nerd out, deeply nerd out on certain topics. By that, I mean people aren't really understanding what is it that I'm really focused on. They don't get it, you know? I'm sure you get that kind of response in your music, right? It's, "Well, what is it that's really taking you into this sphere?" It's hard to explain, right? Yeah, there's certain psychology behind it, which I'm not complaining about. I'm glad to have something to nerd out about. I think we should all have a nerd out type of engagement. In fact, Dr. D. Antimasarius was talking about exercising our frontal lobe faculties, and music is one of the best exercises for that. Reading, stuff that you and I do, music, sociability, meeting with people, in real time, not on social media, so called. So yeah, there's some positive discoveries that are made. I mean, that's the type of research she does. She does some really incredible. It's funded too, miraculously. I said, "Well, don't you get in trouble by the administration?" She has problems getting money for it because it doesn't really convert into big pharma bucks. But there's still hope at the university in some remote quarters. So that's why I thought it was so important to have her lend her opinion on this.
And that was
And
on your show today on Professor Hamamoto on YouTube for those that want to see the show. And
yes,
I saw a
yeah,
little bit of it and it's very interesting.
yeah,
Well, you guys out in California, I mean, here we are. We're on opposite coasts, and uh, there's so much of a perspective that I don't have. Especially, I have not been to California in probably 30, 40 years now, and
oh my
even when
gosh,
I've been there, it's just been for short trips. So
yeah.
I'm not. I'm jealous, really. I'd love to have more time out there.
It's
Um,
changed.
yeah. Well.
We even have our own mass shooters. In the old
Well.
days, it would have been unheard of, but there's past two shooters, one was Vietnamese, the other guy was Chinese. That would have been unheard of until recently. So I think there's some kind of assigned or MK killer type situation involved. That's my hypothesis. The
Well, I haven't studied those cases. I heard about them and I didn't look. I mean, it's not that close to me, and I wasn't gonna, just to go to look just to be a kind of a gawk at it,
Yeah.
but the timing of it with the Chinese Lunar New Year, as
Mhm.
well as the immediate involvement of certain politicians, um, is very, kind of creepy. It reminds me of certain politicians at a certain tragedy in Connecticut a decade ago,
Yeah.
and the Cuomos, and it's just you remember the shooting in was it San Bernardino? Oh, was that the one about 5 years ago? And they had film of these three guys in khaki pants, and
Mhm.
dark blue shirts, exiting the scene quickly, and then it
Mhm.
all disappeared. Um, uh, I don't know. I am so suspicious right now, and of course, all that you hear from the liberal side is, how long is it going to go on? When are they going to
Yeah.
pass the law that takes away these assault weapons that are so horrible?
Right.
And that's that's where I'm sorry, but that's where I think it all ultimately heads to, that and I'll just say it this way. Um,
Yeah.
the beatings will continue until morale improves.
And then it'll pick up again because it doesn't stop once you
Yeah,
give up your rights.
yeah,
It just intensifies because now you're truly vulnerable.
yeah.
And I mentioned some, you're not in California, but there's this local politician by the name of Judy Chu. I'm mentioning her because she might become national as a result of this, because Kamala Harris, as you know, was there and Gavin Newsom was there. So she got some FaceTime with them. And so she might become the new representative of the state of California. But Judy Chu comes out of UCLA, Asian American Studies. I don't know if she majored in it, but as I found out, it's Asian American Studies. All that was an intelligence run operation.
Mm,
Yeah,
wow. Well,
yeah. I was almost wondering why they were so suspicious of me.
it, this is what I wanted to ask about the political side of this, and that would be, I would just toss it out there as an idea that the the Asian American community is a major important voting bloc,
It is.
and that to emphasize these tragedies at a time when they are emotionally engaged with family, celebrating, letting their guard down, and oh my God, we can't even celebrate New Year's with our family because of these shootings. When will they stop? And the timing, the impact, the political overtones. What do you think?
I think you got it, John. This nothing is a coincidence, especially when you're talking about three shootings in a row within a few days of each other. I gave a talk maybe it's a couple weeks ago already about the assassination of George Moscone in San Francisco, Harvey Milk, that took place a week after the mass murder at Jonestown. 974 people were murdered.
Mm,
Um, Periodically, there's a mass purge in the form of murders of a new political realignment. So I think we are seeing, as we see more of these types of crimes, I think we're going to see a new political realignment, not in a good way, in a way that's going to take us further to into technofascism, which Judy Chu represents.
mm,
I've been following her career since the late '60s and '70s. She was a board member of the LA board, and she was the mayor of Monterey Park at one point, and then she moved it to a state representative, and pretty soon she'll be a rep. She's young enough to be a rep or a U.S. senator, and so she needs that little boost, that recognition. She's going to get a lot of face time. Unfortunately, she's a Maoist.
mm,
I remember I was like I said, these people did not trust me because I was anti-ideologue. Always, I always wanted to keep my mind open and for myself. And as you know, or maybe you didn't face this that directly when you were an undergraduate at Williams and Mary, you're really kind of forced to choose a tribe. They kind of inculcate you that, oh, you got to be here or there. And if you're not, you know, you're lost. You're always going to be in the outside.
That's
And
the
then
one I chose. I chose the Lost. I
I
chose the
know.
Lost Tribe. Oh,
I think,
well, you know what? We were a band of about 7 or 8 or 9 or 5 or 4, however many of us were around together. But we just hung out together and
uh,
did the usual college kids of the '70s things,
yeah,
and we didn't do any harm. But
no,
you know, the the extraordinary atmosphere of being away at college and on your own when you're 18 or 19 years old,
yeah,
it's something that it does. I I wish everyone could have that experience. Really,
I agree.
it's a shame to not be able to say everybody can, and but wow, there's so many problems in the world, and when you talked about when you mentioned like politicians, and I thought of the horrible idea of Gavin Newsom being the Democratic presidential candidate next year.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, and then I thought of Kamala Harris, and then I thought of this German woman, Baerbock, who is their Minister of Defense. And I had never seen her before, but
No,
um, she made the biggest blunder of any diplomat I've ever seen. What she did was she started talking about um, the the weapons that she wants to send to Ukraine,
yeah,
and she said, and the most important thing is that we do it all together, that we're united, because we're at war against Russia.
yeah,
And
scary.
everybody goes, "What? What you mean did the German defense minister just declare war against Russia?" Because as far
Oh
as
man.
nobody's ever said any such thing. I mean, that's like World War III type of an explosive thing to say. So all the critics have picked up on it and sent it around the world. Of course, Germany declares war on Russia. You know, but
Mhm.
what a horrible gaffe from this young woman. And I don't they don't they teach them diplomatic language anymore at all? Or what I was really going to was, are they putting these numbskulls out there to screw up so that we will get sick and tired of them and throw the bums out and then
Yeah,
bring in the techno fascist solution.
yeah. They can just roll them in and out. Say what you will about the Third Reich administration, from Goebbels all the way down, and the architect, all these individuals. They were genuine intellectuals, not just students of war, but classical history and literature, and they understood all that. The people that we're subjected to are technocrats, and sadly, that's even true in Germany, which I always
Yeah.
held Germans in higher regard than American politicians. I thought they had intellectual, historical background and knowledge and depth.
Isn't
But
that terrible to figure that out? Because this
yeah,
is Germany. I mean, Germany was a hero of mine as I was going through high school and college. I studied German in college. I just really loved the literature, the language, the music, the Sturm
yeah,
und Drang, and Beethoven. I was really big on Beethoven, and
yeah,
I'm actually hoping to get my keyboard skills back in place some, but
excellent.
not going there. Just to stick with the idea of how much I thought I respected and honored the German culture, and
Yeah,
then to find out about Reinhard Gehlen and Alan Dulles and the deals made during the war and after the war, and then it's the German government is basically allies of the CIA
yeah,
from the start. I mean, from what was his name, the guy from Köln. Anyway, they all are you know Nazis or Nazi collaborators
mhm,
that are converted into agents of the U.S. security interests and working
Yeah.
through Dulles and Reinhard Gehlen and the BND and the Cultural Revolution. And I mean, I'm not the Cultural Revolution, the Council for Cultural Freedoms, which is the CIA European branch of warping culture
Yeah.
into a dysphoric, you know, concrete block cement looking.
Zeitgeist Krieg.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
and it is, and that coldness and the stifling of real creativity and real
Mhm.
ideas in terms of how to rebuild in Germany in a way that makes sense, um,
Mhm.
as opposed to what we see now is that Europe has just completely under the thumb of the Western financial system, and
Yeah.
and, and that these people are puppets. Schultz,
Yeah.
you know, he's a puppet, and it's a shame, but the German people have been so psychologically disempowered, you know,
Mhm.
that they don't speak up. They won't rise up again. I think that the idea of them changing things is hopeless. But and so that's why we have to do it here. We have to fix it here.
Well, I had the highest regards for German writers of a certain ilk and philosophers, Martin Heidegger excluded, because he joined the Nazi Party in order to get his rectorship in the university. And by the way, he was a lover of Hannah Arendt, who wrote The Origins of Totalitarianism. So there's a strange historical ambiguities here. But I think your point about these people not having that kind of substance, intellectual depth, historical knowledge, I think that's going to work in our favor.
Yeah.
They're technocrats. They can only look at situations from a bureaucratic solution. And
Whereas
yeah.
if people, take the time to look at Lavrov, the Russian foreign minister,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
understand what he's saying and listen to him, and Putin also. They make very, very sensible statements and comments that do include a lot of historical references and
Mhm, mhm.
that sense of knowledge of what's really at stake. Whereas
Yeah,
Americans are all about good guys versus bad guys, and
yeah.
we've decided to be the good guys. So you guys are now obviously the bad guys.
Well, the Russian people are another example of a group, a race, if you will, of people who really have it together culturally, intellectually, and historically. That's why they will ultimately prevail against the German Fourth Reich war machine and against NATO, because NATO is the embodiment of this fourth stage techno-fascist regime that's being rung in right now. So if anybody has money on this conflict here, I'd put your marker on Mother Russia.
And that's not good for America. It's
Not at
not.
all.
I mean, because we spend, Europe, uh, you know, they've just been fighting over whether they can send these battle tanks, the Leopard 2s and the Abrams tanks and these things. They're going to send over 20 of them from this country and 80 of them from that country and things like that.
Yeah.
And Russia has like 12,000 battle tanks.
Oh my God.
And so, what is the point? What the point is you're going to just drag it out and drag it out. You're not going to let peace ever come. And this is the endless war that we've been warned about from Aldous Huxley and everybody that looks at it is that it's insane, but that's the Nazi. That's the fascist. That's the empire. That the empire can only keep its throne if it keeps conquering. You know,
Yeah.
at some point they hoped. That the fantasy is that they'll control the whole world. That's impossible. It's just not ever going to happen. But what they do is they think in terms of our mission is to control the whole world, and by any means necessary, and
Yeah.
and to use people and throw them away, just like they did my father.
Well, that's the residue of German Romanticism. The world as will and representation. You can think your way philosophically and aesthetic into this empire, and it's going to happen, which laid the seeds for later Weimar and Nazism. Now, just Tuesday, I gave a talk. I revisited this writer, Philip K. Dick. I don't know if you ever were interested in him, John, but he wrote this novel published in 1962, right? World War II hadn't been over that long, right? 1945, right? In 62, he came up with this book, The Man in the High Castle. And the premise there is that Japan won the war and Germany won the war. The Axis won. And Germany got the east part of what is the United States, and Japan got the west part. And he takes that sort of alternate history into different areas. But I'm wondering if he did not have some kind of insight that he was getting from some of the people he was hanging out with at Berkeley, UC Berkeley. He was only there for a year. He quit because he didn't want to join ROTC, which was mandatory back then. But he got to go to all the free talks. He got to go on campus. He got to use the library. And he had heard some of the most brilliant minds of the time talking about what we now call the New World Order. I mean, maybe he was in the audience when Huxley gave his same speech at Berkeley and saying, you will learn to love your servitude. So Dick he laid it all out in fictional form, but I don't think he really had to stretch the imagination that far. All this stuff was already in the works. That's The Man in the High Castle, later made into a multi-part series. I think it's on Hulu. And more than that, I think PKD, and he's got a huge following, right? You mention certain people, and if you're critical of them, they'll come down on you like a ton of bricks, which I don't mind. I'm used to that. That's what I do. But they call themselves dickheads, like a pothead. They're into Dick, Philip K. Dick. But the dickheads won't like the fact that I am concluding. I've never read this either from amateur commentators, and there's all kinds of blogs, all kinds of amateur videos, and there's academic literature on Dick that's come out, academic books. There's 3 or 4 academic biographies on Dick, but nobody except for yours truly has positioned PKD as a targeted individual in a person that is a victim of sex-based mind control trauma that was executed in Berkeley and in San Francisco. And I'm finding all kinds of literature that is supporting my argument because I know where to look. I can recognize certain names, and I just follow that trail, and these names intersect over and over again. So my argument, this is where the PKD fans are going to hate me. I'm going to say PKD is not the genius of human liberation warning us. He was announcing, it's a revelation of the method. He was announcing what was going to happen. And he was doing it for this new generation of technocrats who are going to study physics at Berkeley, at Stanford, right? They all secretly would read PKD when they're growing up, right? We're very much influenced by our childhood experiences in that sense. So, and I'm seeing this, and I'm seeing this in this recent PSYOP. He didn't call them PSYOP, he knew about them, but he did not have the information at hand like we do now to understand himself as a TI. And it's written about in 2, he's married 5 times. Well, one of his wives is Tessa Dick, and she mentioned his being molested, homosexual rape, a couple times. And another book by Ann B. Dick was one of his wives, made the same claim. So these are 2 different sources, and I don't think they got along with each other. In addition to this, right, I'm not just interested in PKD because it's cool, and you got Keanu Cruz starring in all the PKD movies, all the fanboys. I know it's Keanu Reeves and I know it's Tom Cruise. I call him Keanu Cruise, kind of a composite, like Barry Obama, right? These synthetic characters, these actors. But the dickheads will not admit the fact that he himself is a product, a courier, sort of like Tiger Woods. You know, they brought in Elin Nordgren, whose mother, by the way, was a minister of immigration in Sweden, and her father was also highly placed in the government. And then she was inserted into the Tiger Wood camp, and he started to fall apart when his dad, Earl Woods, who was a Phoenix program operative, this is during the Vietnam War. Once he died, he started to become unraveled. Talking about Tiger Woods, and he went to Stanford, by the way. He was on the golf team. They had the best golf team in the country. But he started to unravel because the programming started to wear off, and I don't think he's ever regained the prominence that he once enjoyed. He was a super soldier. You can find it on TubeView. Tiger Woods is a 5-year-old hitting these drives off a tee on the Johnny Carson show. And his handler, not Eldrick, I forgot his name, who was I think a long range reconnaissance alert or something, but he was in the Phoenix program, and some people have to do the research on this. I'm only interested to a certain level. And going back to Philip Dick, his mother worked for the federal government for the Children's Bureau. And I nailed where this centralized federal government oppressive control over the family originated. 1908 became a congressional law. And they created this federal organization called the Children's Bureau, and it's still in existence. And his mother worked for it, and she wrote propaganda pamphlets on raising your children, on early childhood development. That's when the state started taking control over the children, out of parental guidance. So she did that. And his father they divorced early on, but his father was working for the federal government too. Guess who? The Department of Agriculture. Again, these agricultural entities keep popping up over and over again. So that's PKD in a nutshell.
I really had never had any information about him at all, and well, thank you for that. I tell you, when you were saying the name of the club that the followers consist of, I started thinking, oh my God, there goes a YouTube strike. Because
Oh, well, I explained it. It's a term of endearment.
it's a term of endearment. Yes.
Yeah. That's what they call themselves, not me. Yeah.
Hello, YouTube. We're not saying it that way.
Right. I'll be careful. This is for educational purposes only.
I know, but
right.
I
No,
was
I
like,
think you're.
no, don't say
No,
that again.
I try to be vigilant and respectful of
Yeah, I
your
know you
show
didn't
and
know.
my own. Yeah.
It comes out. You don't know how it's going to come out sometimes.
Yeah. Because you know what? I think most of the YouTube and the Silicon Valley fact checkers, as they're called, or the people down who are working for DARPA Valley, otherwise
Yeah.
known as Silicon Valley, they are stone cold PKD fans. They love him, they worship him, and that itself is a tip off of what he really means to the techno-fascist state.
Well, I had a fun show last night with Carol M. and Corky Goss, who have done a lot of studies on the idea of low energy nuclear reactors, LENRs. And in connection with that, they were opening up my mind to a lot of stuff that I've always felt was just a little too esoteric. The idea of the pyramids being an energy source, and things like ball lightning, and how it might be attached to standing stones in Ireland, and all of these things that are S-
Oh, yeah.
somewhat, but one of the points that we made was that, I myself, when I hear the word alchemy, I'm like, oh, well, okay, I don't go there. I don't do alchemy. Okay.
Mhm,
And then another word that came up was ether. It
mhm.
was that you remember that used to in older literature you would hear people speaking about the ether,
Oh,
that
yeah, that was pre-science, that ether
yeah,
stuff. Yeah,
exactly. So
yeah.
so now here we are. We have ether and it's coming into to me through research into the latest technology of energy machines, these low energy nuclear reactors, and it just really started to make sense to me that what's in the vacuum, when what's in space is really the actual stuff, the real stuff is like to us perhaps invisible but very, very powerful. And to me, I'm looking for something that I can believe in other than a fairy tale Christianity on the
Mhm,
one hand, or go into some, modern religion, which I've tried a few. I did Unitarian for a long time, for instance, and I respect that church.
mhm.
But I'm looking for something as an alternative to the dark vision of the future, the dystopia of totalitarian techno fascism, which they
Yeah.
are. They. I mean, they're out there marketing it. Klaus
Oh my
Schwab is
gosh.
saying, "Hey, it's coming." That Harari guy, that Israeli man, that he's out there marketing it. So, oh, we will not need but only a few million people in the future. The rest of we don't need them anymore. And that's all be done by robots, right? And it's trying to scare the hell out of us with this dystopian view. So I'm looking for an alternative, and I'm thinking I'm going to really do I guess maybe nerd out a little bit, as you put it,
Mhm.
on this idea of nuclear. Uh, um, which one is it? Fission or fusion? It's Corky. Help me out. Corky. All right, but anyway, I think it's great to reevaluate the basic way that life works. And it certainly doesn't work in straight lines and 90-degree
No.
angles. It's fractal and it's but the energy fields, and then he starts talking about Tesla, and that's another one that I just say, I'm never going to understand Tesla, so why even open the book?
Mhm,
But on the other hand, it's possible that lay people can understand this if it's explained clearly enough. And I do think Carol and Corky did a good job last night. So thanks to them. And
excellent.
I recommend folks to take a look at the show from last.
Absolutely. And my position on that is that, one does not have to have any expertise in science or physics specifically. As long as you grasp the concepts and you can understand the politics of suppressed technology and the
Yeah,
politics of how other technology are advanced and come forward. I think that's the contribution that talks like this will have in sensitizing the general public to alternatives, because we need desperately to always keep alternatives open and in search of them. Now, I think what PKHD's saving grace is that he converted. Well, he was raised as a Quaker, and I got to find out more about that. But he said he converted to Episcopalianism, and he remained a lifelong Christian. In fact, he was close friends with Bishop Pike, Pike, and he remained that, even though he died, I think at age 53, died young. I think that helped save his soul, PKD, because most of those other science fiction people, Robert Heinlein, even Isaac Asimov, John W. Campbell, the ones who are descended from Ugo Gernsback, who was a Central European, emigrated to the US. I think he was sent over here to start to condition the new generation of technocrats. with Amazing Science and all these books that kids would be reading in the 20s and 30s, right? They were just like these cheap pulp magazines back then.
What's this man's name again? I'm
Um,
interested in this.
Hugo or Ugo, Hugo Gernsback.
Okay.
Not very many people know him, but he was a seminal figure in bringing popular science to the masses. Because
And
before, yeah,
did he go to California? Did he hook up with Asimov? Tell me a little more if you know. I'm fascinated.
Gernsback, I think he was out in New York. He was
Uh-huh.
part of. He wasn't accepted in, of course, the literary circles, but I think his publishing outfit operated there. And of course, there was no email at the time, and there was just mostly snail mail back and forth. And Philip Dick was working in that system where editors had a lot of impact on what was being released. So I think a lot of his work was redone, re-edited to square with a certain zeitgeist, if I can use that term, that Gernsback and the people behind him were trying to advance. And I've already referred to it as technofascism.
Hugo Gernsback, born Hugo Gernsbacher, was a Luxembourgish American editor and magazine publisher whose publications included the first science fiction magazine. I'm on Wikipedia. His
Uh-huh.
contributions to the genre as a publisher were so significant that, along with the novelists H.G. Wells and Jules Verne, he is sometimes called the father of science fiction. In his
Yeah.
annual award, that's the Hugos. I've heard of the Hugos.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is and he comes, apparently Luxembourg, American. Well, I'm gonna dig into this man because I think he has, some connections to, uh,
Yeah.
deep intelligence, because, the proliferation of science fiction as a introduction to the techno-fascist world that they're going to
Yeah.
usher in is so obvious now.
It's
But
obvious.
but so many people are still, that's why they keep getting all these crazy video games out there and get
Yeah.
everybody hooked on Marvel Comics and these things. It's all a distraction to keep us wedded in that pipeline that they've created to drive us into the techno-fascist future.
Well, please keep us abreast on your research into Ugo Gernsback.
I
I
will.
think he might be of noble bloodlines, you know, Saxe Coburn, something like that. Maybe a bastard son who they couldn't really acknowledge. So they said, well, we're going to send you into publishing.
Oh, he's Jewish.
Oh, okay.
Here it is. Yeah, Gernsbacher was born in 1884 to Bertha Durlacher, a housewife, and Moritz Gernsbacher, a winemaker. His family was Jewish.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Let's see. He might be a Rothschild for all we know.
Oh, wow.
Right. Winemaking. Yeah, that's a sacramental preoccupation. That's pretty unusual. He's definitely someone to watch. And there's something that all three of those gentlemen that you mentioned that they share in common. They're all fascists.
Mm.
In fact, there was a science fiction writer who won the Hugo Award. I think it was a couple of years ago already. Her name was Jeanette Ng, the first woman to win it, I think. Maybe not the first, maybe the second or third. She's Hong Kong, and she was at the conference where they were going to award the Hugo, and she didn't think that she was going to win. So she just wrote spontaneously on her iPad, and she just went up there and said, I appreciate the award that you're conferring upon me, the John W. Campbell Award, but John Campbell was a fascist, which is true. If you
Mm.
read his books, and even his biographers will admit, it's not just me saying this. And to their credit, most of the science fiction community, writers, editors, and people who have won the Hugo Award, they fessed up to it and they supported her. So there's a positive lesson in that, ladies and gentlemen. Jeanette Ng could have just taken the award and had a successful career as a mainstream. She could be the new Neil Stevenson, or what's his name? Well, there's these other characters all along those lines. But no, she called him out on it. So these
I,
types of declamations, these exposures can have an impact, and they do oftentimes. There's no way. And all of it, most of it was Asiaphobia, right, which I talk about a lot. It's
mhm.
an epigenetic anti-Mongolian fear, and I think that's also one of the reasons for the attack on Chinese in California, which is historically has targeted Chinese for physical attack, and exclusion as well. They weren't allowed to come into the U.S. until 1965 with the Hart-Celler Immigration Act of 65, and those people who were targeted for attack are part of that generation, the post-65 generation. They're fairly new. So I think the national security techno-fascist state wants to make sure you're here, you're going to make money here, but you're going to do it on our terms. We own you. I think that was part of the message. And then Kamala Harris said, "Oh yeah, of course, Judy Chu, yeah, Gavin Newsom, yeah, absolutely." So the Chinese American community are going to have to look back to their grandparents and even the Greek parents and look at the reasons why they left China to come to the US. They left to escape imperial dynasty, right? Imperial oppression. And now their children are beginning to replicate everything that their grandparents had warned them against.
How
And
different is that from the children and grandparents, grandchildren of the greatest generation now supporting the Nazis in Ukraine?
exactly.
How do these things happen? Well, one way is mass media control and control, and even reaching into the uh, every hour of the day with computers and iPhones and the whole thing. I mean, parents knew it was going to happen. They just couldn't hold the line.
Yeah.
The economy was redrawn in such a way that women had to work. A stable family became the exception and not the rule anymore,
Yeah.
and the children become vulnerable to manipulation. That's They're trying to teach these children that this satanic techno horror is actually gonna be fun and good, and,
Yeah.
hey, you're gonna have a great time. You're gonna be like you'll have superpowers like Marvel Comics people.
Right. Create your own adventure. Now, from what I've gathered from you, John, in previous conversations, it doesn't seem like your family was really TV centric when you were a kid.
Well, we were in a sense. I mean, we would yeah, I mean, I was probably like every other kid at the time. We'd get home from school and turn on the television.
Oh, okay.
And then, it was cartoons back then. It was like, Channel 5 cartoons, Popeye cartoons, Captain Tug, um,
Yeah.
and then, the only other thing I remember is, we always looked forward to the Disney show, at 8 o'clock on Sunday nights.
The
Um,
Wonderful World of Color.
yeah, yeah, and I loved all the little, stories that they had, Swamp Fox and,
Yeah.
The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, and uh,
Daniel Boone
Daniel Boone. I
with
love that
Fess
stuff.
Parker.
Yeah. I mean, how could anything possibly be wrong with something as wonderful as Disney, and the wonderful world of Disney?
Mhm.
And but again, another facade, another bait and switch. Come on, come on, Mickey Mouse. What could be wrong with Mickey Mouse? Well, a lot could be wrong with Mickey Mouse.
Right. Uncle Walt would say, "Yeah, we're gonna introduce you to Daniel Boone, and after the show, I'm gonna introduce my good friend,
Uh,
Dr. Werner von Braun." Right? He's got you with a Daniel Boone Americana, and then he's gonna bring in you know, a
but
Nazi physicist. Yeah.
remember the future world, the world of the future. What was it called? Futureland at
Monsanto
the
were
original
Tomorrowland.
Disney World. Yeah,
Uh,
Tomorrowland, and that was all about technology and
Genetics,
mm,
GMO, all of it. Yeah, the house of the future. And by the way, in doing this research on PKD, the first major grant that Hewlett and Packard received, they're out of Stanford, in 1939 was for a holographic tube. And this is 39 before televisions became commercially available. So they're already using this as a perfecting it as a directed energy weapon that is going to be deployed against us. And I have the patents, and I have the articles, and I have a literature behind it. There was also a son and a father, maybe they were siblings, named Varian, Varin, who were at Stanford, who came up with this device called the Klystron, which is kind of like a magnetron, but it was a mind control technology later used in HARP. Right, many people who are watching here know about Dr. Nick Begich's fine work on HARP. Right, and there's been a lot of books written on that since then, but it was all coming out of Stanford, and Philip K. Dick was in that region, and I think he was being used as a conduit for all these different bits of cool, I mean that ironically, technology.
well, that's what's going on, I think, with what Corky and Carol are talking about with the LENRs is that this technology does exist.
Yeah.
They've been hiding it from us for 50 years, but they know how to do it, and they're just waiting for the time, and that's where Isaac Asimov's foundation books really goes. Is
Yeah.
that the future is a divided humanity with a very small number of very privileged and wise ones that are like the scientists, and they know how to do this thing called psychohistory,
Yes.
and they
Harry
use
Harkonnen.
yeah, psychological manipulation of the masses of millions and millions of people, because they've learned how to manipulate people by statistical analysis, and they make things happen in a way that development happens faster and faster and faster because they just drive it that way. But what's really going on is they have created a secret nuclear energy plants that are hidden, and the people on the surface, the 99% have no idea where energy comes from. They don't know
Mhm.
anything about atomic energy. They have no clue. All they know is that they go, and I don't know what they pay their tribute or worship at I can't remember the details, but the idea was the source of the energy is completely hidden from the common people, and that, of course, keeps them enslaved.
Mhm. Well, we can hope that our talk here, John, is passed on to some of the grandchildren or children of the people who are watching this, because they're going to be writing alternative science fiction that's truly alternative. Once they learn the real dark techno-fascist history of so-called science fiction and how it's been deployed as a form of mass control, as well as being a fairly lucrative profit motor for this whole system. And they
Yeah.
use Philip K. Dick in order to realize that. Now, there's one other element that I will offer the audience to consider, and that is, and this is a big saw for me, right? I've said this many, many times, but no one seems to pick up on it. But people are locked into this notion that Paperclip was just a bunch of German Nazis. Right? Technically, yeah, that may be true. But there was another cohort of psychiatrists and psychologists, what we know today as neuroscientists, who were either Austrian or German Jews, who were MDs or PhDs. And guess where they set up shop? In San Francisco. And where did Philip K. Dick go for his weekly therapy sessions? He took the bus across the bay to the hospital there, and I need to find documentation on that. And he was treated by all these strange Lovian characters with thick Germanic, Austrian accents, and many of them set up shop in the 60s as part of the humanistic Fritz Perls. I don't know if you remember the Esalen Institute. It was all this hippy dippy stuff, right? That
Oh yeah.
those were the guys that were setting it up.
Yeah.
And he got an early introduction to that. I'm talking about PKD. But again, I'm building up these walls here, and that's for other people to do the research and find out. So it's not just a bunch of sexy German Nazis, right? It was the mind totalitarians. Many of them were Jews, Austrian or German, just like Ugo Gernsback.
And imagine how excited they would be, titillated when they heard about LSD.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, the
Philip
perfect.
Dick only tried it twice and he hated it both times. He was against LSD.
Well,
That's
that's
another aspect of his career that these people are trying to hijack and rewrite, that he was a proponent of Silicon Valley style microdosing and visionary tech of the sort that Elon Musk and Joe Rogan, these other trendy people, are promoting to this younger generation of people who are expectant techies and think PKD had it all wired. But no, they got to watch this conversation between you and me and put on their big boy pants. I'm not mocking them. I'm inviting them into the conversation. Put the comments down below. Don't hate me. Start this conversation amongst yourself. Tell me if I'm wrong.
the thing about LSD that is so sad is that, it is actually, a possibly an agent for all the good things like peace, for like, let's just explore, the universe that you gets opened up to you when you are in an altered state.
Yeah.
Let's just relax and take this idea as a new way to possibly solve some big problems, but actually just to be human, to see what happens. But no, it's militarized from the beginning.
Yeah.
The whole thing is a military program.
Mhm.
And I know it was the Air Force psychiatrist in at Ashbury that were running it. And
Oh, yeah.
and these guys, this is a military program to see what happens, just like, test it, just like they, would spray something over a city to see if how many people get sick. Well, they
Right.
just disseminated enough acid out there to see what happened, and then said, wow, not only can we use this to affect individuals,
Mhm.
maybe it is this magic thing that we can use to control huge crowds and stuff. Oh,
Mhm.
what if we rented a farm in New York State somewhere, you know? And oh, okay, yeah, we could monitor them from airplanes and see what they do. Um, I, I'm so angry that something that could be and still can be, I think, a very useful uh, tool towards more understanding of who we really are, what is humanity, what is it like to be alive, and and
Yeah.
and but to take it and immediately twist it and
Yeah.
you know use it against the people instead of letting the people use it if they wish to expand your mind. I'm not
Mhm.
against that, but
No.
like you say, I don't know anything about Philip K. Dick, but I can understand why he would oppose it because it was being used as a tool to control people as opposed to the opposite, to enlighten and allow people to perhaps consider things that they'd never ever thought of before.
Mhm. And he grew up in a region that most people don't associate with militarism. They associate San Francisco and the Napa Valley with California cuisine and the beautiful hills of San Francisco and Oakland now. Part of it is a foodie paradise. University of California is there. But first and foremost, the Bay Area of San Francisco is a presidio. It's an electoral presidio, and it was well in place by the time PKD showed up goes back at least to the Spanish-American War. Even before then, that's when American troops were sent from San Francisco over to slaughter tens of thousands of Filipinos who did not want to go under colonial rule, that they had just disposed of the Spanish colonial masters. They weren't having it.
Well,
They ultimately were defeated.
yeah,
So
that's a
that's
sad,
San
sad.
Francisco. That's the real San Francisco. It's a militarized fortress, political economic system, and that extends all the way down to Silicon Valley. Always remember that. First and foremost, I'm sorry it's going to spoil your dinner over at French Laundry. You might be celebrity watching and you'll see Gavin Newsom there, having a meal, prefix. I don't know what it is, $500, $600, or, Anthony Bourdain is gone now, but there was an episode where he assembles all of these great chefs from around the country and they go to French Laundry. And that's also the whole ritualistic overlay that was taking place there. So I'm spoiling your meal, but just think of that, because this deeper realization is going to help us break the programming, break the spell.
Well, I'll tell you what, Professor, the next time I come out there, I'm going to let you take me to dinner at
Yeah, all right.
the laundry. What is it? The French Laundry?
French Laundry.
All right. It sounds enticing, and I'm sure we'll see some very interesting characters there. I hope Gavin Newsom is still in California, though. I do not want him anywhere near Washington, D.C.
Well, he looks like he might be on his way now, but yeah, hopefully, if there are enough voters watching this show, they'll think twice about letting a snake in the grass into higher office. He's okay where he is now because the governor doesn't really run anything. But if he's the president, a lot of people are going to fall in line. Same with Kamala Harris. But yeah, I'll be glad to buy you a meal. It may not be at French Laundry, but it'll be something close. There is some good food out here. And by
Uh,
the way, where the shootings took place, that's like one of the foodie capitals of Los Angeles, because all the recent immigrants have brought their own food cultures there, and the food is really, really good.
well, I'm going to make it out there,
All
and
right.
I look forward to seeing you in person. And
Yeah. Let's go to remote.
well, we'll do it in person.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I, I, well, we've been working together for 3, 4 years now, and
Yeah. Yeah.
we've
It's a
never
long
been in the
time.
same room. And we got to make that happen, Daryl.
Yeah. I agree. And this relationship has been quite fulfilling for me, John. And I appreciate you giving me this time. I always look forward to the last Thursday of each month.
Well, so do I, and it's mutually felt. I really do appreciate your devoting so much time to me and allowing me to broaden my horizons with your amazing perception. And I don't want to let the evening end without telling everybody, if you haven't read Servitors of Empire, you've got to read Professor Hamamoto's book. It is so insightful and teaches. It taught me about my Irish heritage, even though it's about Asian heritage. It's just
Yeah.
a really thorough, well written, and enlightening book. So get yourself a copy of that, and we'll talk about that the next time. What do you think?
Well, thank you for that, John. I'm working on a new book now, though. I hope I can get it done.
Okay. All right. All the best.
All right. Thank you so much. Good
Let's see you
evening.
guys tomorrow. Good night.
Yes. Good night.